I'm 72 years old, and 3 years ago, I walked into my doctor's office for a routine checkup. Blood pressure, cholesterol, the usual stuff you do when your body starts reminding you it won't last forever. I'd been going to Dr. Reeves for about 15 years. Good man, quiet, professional, never pushed too hard. That day, though, he did something different. He looked at my chart, set it down on the counter, looked me in the eyes, and asked one question. "Arthur, are you happy?" I laughed, nervous laugh, the kind you do when somebody catches you off guard. I said, "What do you mean? I'm fine. Everything's fine." He didn't move, just sat there looking at me with this calm, patient expression, like he was willing to wait all day. And I felt something crack, not in my body, somewhere deeper than that, somewhere I'd been plastering over for decades. I didn't answer him, not really. I mumbled something about being retired and keeping busy and having my health, and he nodded and moved on to the checkup. But driving home that day, I pulled over on the side of the road and sat in my car for 45 minutes, because the answer to his question, the real answer, was no. No, I wasn't happy. I hadn't been happy for a long time, and I didn't know when it started or why, and that scared me more than any diagnosis ever could. My name is Arthur Brennan. I was a high school math teacher for 34 years. I raised 2 kids with my wife, Helen. We've been married 47 years. I own my house. I've got a pension. On paper, my life looks exactly like it should. But paper doesn't tell you what it feels like to wake up every morning and not have a single thing you're looking forward to. That's where I was. Not depressed exactly, at least not the way people usually describe it. I got out of bed, I ate, I went for walks, I watched TV, I functioned. But there was this, emptiness underneath everything, like the color had drained out of the world and I'd just gotten used to it. After Dr. Reeves asked me that question, I started paying attention to my own life in a way I hadn't in years. And what I saw wasn't good. I saw a man going through the motions, a man who hadn't had a real conversation with a friend in months, a man whose wife sat across from him at dinner every night in silence, a man who used to love woodworking but hadn't touched his tools in over 2 years, a man who, somewhere along the way, stopped living and started just existing. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. You can lose yourself so slowly that you don't even notice it's happening. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not like one day you're full of life and the next day you're empty. It's gradual. You give up one hobby because you're tired. You stop calling a friend because it's been too long and now it's awkward. You stop trying new things because you've decided you're too old. You stop telling your wife what you're thinking because you've convinced yourself she doesn't really want to know. And one day you look up and realize you've become a ghost in your own life. Present, but not really there. I never talked about any of this. Not to Helen, not to my kids, not to anyone. Because men my age, we were taught that feelings are a luxury. You provide, you endure, you don't complain. My father worked 50 years at the same factory and never once told anyone he was unhappy. Not once. He came home, he ate dinner, he sat in his chair, and he did it again the next day. And I thought that was strength. I thought that was what being a man looked like. It's not strength, it's a cage. And you build it around yourself one silence at a time. After that appointment, I came home and Helen was in the kitchen. She looked at me and said, "How'd it go?" And every other time I'd say fine and walk to the living room. But that day, something was different. I sat down at the table and I said, "Helen, I think something's wrong with me." She stopped what she was doing, came and sat across from me. She didn't ask what. She just waited. I said, "I don't think I'm happy. I don't think I've been happy for a long time, and I don't know what to do about it." And do you know what she said? She said, "I know." Not "I'm sorry," not "what's wrong," just "I know." Like she'd been watching me disappear for years and was just waiting for me to notice it myself. That cut me open. The idea that my own wife could see me drowning, and I couldn't even see it. But she also told me something I didn't expect. She said, "Arthur, I've been lonely too. 47 years married to this woman, and she tells me she's been lonely. With me, right there, every night, in the same house, the same bed. And she was lonely, because I'd turned into a shell. A man who came and went and said fine to every question and never let anyone close enough to see what was actually going on inside. I think a lot of people, a lot of men especially, are walking around like this right now. Functional, adequate, getting to the day, but empty. And nobody asks them the question Dr. Reeves asked me because it's not polite. It's not comfortable. You don't ask a 70-year-old man if he's happy. You say, "How are you?" And he says, "Can't complain," and everybody moves on. But that's the problem. We keep moving on. We keep not asking the real questions, not giving real answers, not looking at what's actually happening underneath the surface. After that conversation with Helen, things didn't magically get better. It wasn't like in the movies where you have one breakthrough and suddenly life is beautiful. It was messy, uncomfortable. I started seeing a therapist, which at 70 years old felt ridiculous to me at first. A man my age, sitting on a couch, talking about his feelings. My father would have been ashamed. But my father also died at 76 with no friends, no hobbies, and a wife who told me privately that she'd felt alone for the last 30 years of their marriage. So maybe my father's way wasn't the way. The therapist, Dr. McCallson, she asked me something in our second session that I still think about. She said, "Arthur, when's the last time you did something just because it brought you joy? Not because it was useful, not because it was productive, not because someone needed you to do it, just because it made you feel alive." I couldn't answer. I sat there, trying to think of the last time I'd done something purely for the joy of it, and I couldn't come up with anything. Years, maybe decades, I'd been living a life built entirely on obligation, and I'd mistaken that for meaning. So I started small. I went back to my workshop. My tools were dusty, the bench was covered in junk. I spent a whole afternoon just cleaning it up. Didn't build anything, just cleaned. And standing there in that workshop, moving things around, touching wood and sandpaper, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. I felt like myself. I called my old friend Ray. We'd been close for years, taught at the same school, but after retirement we just sort of faded. I picked up the phone and said, "Ray, I know it's been a while. You want to get breakfast?" He said, "I've been waiting for you to call, you stubborn old fool." We met at a diner near our old school and talked for 3 hours. 3 hours. About our lives, our health, things we were afraid of, things we missed. And, he told me he'd been going through the same thing. The emptiness. The going through the motions. He said his wife had asked him almost the exact same thing Dr. Reeves asked me. "Are you okay? Really okay?" And he'd said yes, even though the answer was no. We're all doing this. Pretending. Performing fine while something inside us is starving. I started walking every morning. Not for exercise, not because the doctor told me to. Just to be outside, to feel the air, to notice things. I started reading again. Started cooking, which I'd never really done before. Helen and I started making dinner together, talking while we chopped vegetables, laughing sometimes. Actually laughing. It sounds small. I know it does. Walking, cooking, calling an old friend, going to therapy. None of it is dramatic. But when you've been empty for years, small things feel like coming back from the dead. My kids noticed the change before I did. My daughter, Sarah, called Helen and said, "What happened to Dad? He sounds different on the phone." Different. I sounded different because I was trying, for the first time in years, to actually be present instead of just pretending to be. My son, Mark, he came to visit a few months after the doctor's appointment, and I asked if he wanted to come out to the workshop with me. I was building a bookshelf, nothing fancy. He looked at me like I'd asked him to fly to the moon. He said, "Dad, you've never asked me to do anything in the workshop with you." And he was right. I'd kept that space to myself for 30 years, but it wasn't mine to keep. It was a place we could have shared. We spent the afternoon out there, Mark handing me pieces, me showing him how the joints fit together. He's 43 years old, and I'm teaching him how to use a miter saw. We should have done that decades ago, but we didn't, because I was too busy being fine, too busy keeping everything inside, too busy being the kind of man I thought I was supposed to be. Here's what I want you to take from this, if nothing else. If someone asks you if you're happy and your first instinct is to laugh or change the subject or say, "I'm fine," please stop. Sit with the question. Answer it honestly, and if only to yourself, because fine is not an answer. Fine is a wall. Fine is what you say when you've given up on the possibility that things could actually be good. And they can be good. Even at 72, even after years of emptiness, even after you've convinced yourself this is just how life is now. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to build a new life from scratch. You just have to start doing one thing. One real thing that makes you feel like a person again instead of a passenger. Call someone. Pick up an old hobby. Tell your wife what you're actually thinking. Go see a doctor, and when they ask how you're doing, tell them the truth. I'm not all the way back. Some days are still quiet in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Some mornings I still wake up and feel that old blankness before I push through it. But I'm here now. Actually here. Not performing life. Living it. Even when it's hard. Even when it's small. Dr. Reeves saved my life that day. Not with medicine. Not with a diagnosis. With 5 words. "Arthur, are you happy?" Nobody had ever asked me that before, and the fact that it took a doctor in a clinical room to ask me the most human question there is, that tells you everything you need to know about how disconnected we've become. This channel is full of people like me, telling you the things they wish someone had told them sooner. If this meant something to you, subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and leave me a comment if you want. Tell me, are you happy? Really? Not fine, not okay, not getting by. Happy. Because that question changed my life. Maybe it can change yours. If you've got a story to tell, something you've been through that might help somebody else, there's a form in the description. Fill it out. Maybe next time it'll be your voice doing the talking.